Is it safe to buy a car with a turbocharged engine, or should you avoid them at all costs? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. If you are a regular viewer of the channel, you might have noticed that I'm often quite critical of cars that have turbocharged engines. But what exactly is a turbocharged engine, and how do they compare to non-turbo, naturally aspirated engines? What are the pros and cons, and probably most importantly of all, are they safe to buy in terms of long-term reliability and repair costs? Well, make sure to stick around until the end of the video because that's what we're going to find out. And if you enjoy and get value out of this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I post 2 videos a week, always straight to the point, valuable car buying advice designed to help you, the consumer. So before we get into the reliability concerns, let's go over what a turbocharged engine is. A turbocharger, also known as a turbo, is basically like a small turbine, which is powered by the exhaust gas of the engine. With the help of an intercooler to help keep everything nice and cool, this is used to force more air into the engine to make more power. The reason why car manufacturers love turbocharged engines is because they allow a small, more efficient engine to create the same amount of power as a larger, less efficient engine. This means that you can have a smaller, more fuel-efficient engine with better emissions too, that produces more power, which is what a lot of consumers are looking for. Let's go over a quick example to show exactly how this works using the 2022 Honda Civic, which is available with both a naturally aspirated engine and a turbo engine. The naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder engine produces 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. It also achieves an average of 33 miles per gallon or 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers. The optional 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine, however, produces 180 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque. This is 22 more horsepower and 40 pound-feet of torque more than the base engine, which is significant. But on the flip side, the smaller 1.5 turbo engine also achieves 34 miles per gallon or 6.9 liters per 100 kilometers. So not only is it more powerful, but it's also slightly more fuel efficient too. And this is exactly why so many car makers are moving to turbo engines. You get better power, better fuel economy with fewer emissions, so it's basically a win-win for everybody. Although most turbo engines do perform amazing, most of the concerns around them have to do with long-term reliability, repair costs, and serviceability. The first major concern with turbo engines is the fact that they have a lot more parts than a comparable naturally aspirated engine. With a turbocharged engine, you of course have the turbocharger itself as the main additional part. You also have an intercooler, which is a bit like a small radiator to keep everything nice and cool. And you also have all of the additional parts and hardware that go along with these 2 components. All of this adds a lot of complexity to the engine and means that you have a lot more potential parts to replace down the road in terms of repair costs. And yes, it's not uncommon for a lot of these parts to fail down the road, even sometimes during the warranty period too. Take, for example, the redesigned 2022 Toyota Tundra pickup truck, which replaced the old V8 engine with a brand new 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6 engine. Although it's a great performing engine, there have been many reported issues with the turbochargers and the electronically actuated wastegates, which are known to fail. And when these parts do fail, it's a huge job in order to replace them because they're located at the back of the engine, so most of the truck needs to come apart. And that's the issue with these engines. They can be very difficult to work on, labor can be quite intensive, and the parts are very expensive too. Ask anyone who's owned any GM vehicle with the turbocharged 1.4-liter 4-cylinder Ecotec engine. This was one of the first mainstream turbo engines to come out in a simple economy car way back in 2010. And ever since that time, it's had ongoing issues with the engine and the turbocharger itself, which is known to fail at an alarming rate. And there are countless other examples of problematic turbo engines from other brands too, including from brands like Hyundai and Kia, BMW, Volkswagen, and Audi, which all make regular use of turbo engines. Now the other issue is that not only is a turbocharged engine more complicated with additional parts that need to be replaced, but it also puts a lot of additional heat and pressure on the engine itself, which can shorten the lifespan of the engine. Turbochargers work at extremely high temperature, and because they're basically pressurizing air and forcing more air into the engine, this can put a lot more strain on the engine itself. Compare that to a naturally aspirated engine, which not only has far fewer parts, but also doesn't have all of the added heat and pressure of a turbo, all of which helps to increase its lifespan. There are many examples out there of how all this additional heat and pressure can lead to a lot more additional problems down the road with a turbocharged engine. One great example of this can be seen with Ford's EcoBoost 4-cylinder turbo engines. Unfortunately, Ford's 4-cylinder EcoBoost engines have an inherent defect where coolant can leak into the cylinders, which can lead to corrosion, misfires, and sometimes complete engine failure. This coolant issue is ultimately caused by the added heat of the turbochargers, which puts a lot of additional strain on the engine and ultimately ruins the seals of the cylinder head. This loss of coolant can also sometimes lead to internal engine damage and even cracked cylinder heads. And Ford's EcoBoost engines are not the only turbo engines that are known to experience these type of issues. There have also been many reported issues with BMW's turbo engines, especially the twin-turbo V8s. BMW's twin-turbo V8 has a somewhat unique design where the turbochargers are located inside the V of the engine. This does give you better power, but it also creates all kinds of unique issues because all of that added heat from the turbos is right inside the engine. And all of that additional heat causes the seals on the engine to fail, causing oil leaks, coolant leaks, and sometimes even engine failure. Now sometimes the issue with turbo engines is not necessarily related to defective parts or the design of the engine itself. Sometimes it just has to do with the way that the car is driven. Which leads me to the next reliability issue with turbo engines, which is that they don't really tolerate short distance driving or extremely cold weather that well. Turbo engines can be somewhat temperamental and sensitive, and most of them need a lot of time in order to warm up to operating temperature before they can perform properly. So if you're the type of person that does very short distance driving, like say only a few miles or kilometers before shutting off the car, this could lead to major reliability issues down the road. Not giving a turbocharged engine enough time to warm up could lead to all kinds of issues, including a buildup of condensation and a buildup of carbon on the intake valves of the engine. This is especially true of engines that have direct fuel injection, which are known for carbon buildup with both turbo and non-turbo engines. And the situation is even worse for those who live in extremely cold weather, like severe winter, which makes it even harder for the turbo engine to warm up properly. There have been many examples of how short distance driving and extremely cold weather can be very problematic for turbo engines. One of the best examples of this can be seen with Honda's 1.5-liter turbo 4-cylinder engine. Yes, the same engine that I was referencing earlier. Because this engine is so efficient, it needs a lot of time in order to warm up properly. So if you're the type of person that does a lot of short distance driving in cold weather, it could lead to issues down the road, especially oil dilution, where the fuel mixes with the engine oil, causing all kinds of problems. Even though Honda worked very hard to fix this issue and did introduce a lot of updates for 2019, it's still sometimes an issue for those who do very short distance driving in cold weather. And ultimately, nothing is really going to fix that problem because turbo engines just don't tolerate that type of driving. This could also potentially become a problem for a lot of the turbo engines that are used on hybrid cars, like a lot of the Hyundai and Kia hybrid SUVs. The issue here is that a hybrid system is naturally designed to turn the engine on and off on a regular basis, which is not a good thing for a turbocharged engine in normal circumstances. Turbo engines not only need a lot of time in order to warm up, but they also don't really like to be turned on and off all the time, because it creates way too many heat and cooling cycles, which could lead to a lot of issues down the road. Which is why a turbo engine is not only bad for short distance driving, but it's also not very good for hybrid cars either. And that brings us to the next issue with turbo engines, which has to do with the maintenance. Now, turbo engines don't necessarily need more maintenance than regular naturally aspirated cars, but they are a lot more sensitive to maintenance, and they do need to have oil changes done on time on a regular basis. Now, this wouldn't be much of a concern if most car owners were very diligent with their maintenance and had their oil changes done on time on a regular basis, but unfortunately that's not the reality. Many car owners can be quite neglectful and can stretch oil changes as long as possible. Now, even though a naturally aspirated engine might be able to tolerate a little bit more abuse, that's not going to be the case with a turbo engine, which is not going to perform well if it's been neglected. So ultimately, what does this mean in terms of reliability and ownership costs? Is it best to avoid a car with a turbo engine altogether? Well, like I mentioned, if you're the type of person that only holds on to their car for up to 7 to 8 years at the most, then you should be safe buying a brand new car with a turbo engine. Most of the issues that I outlined typically happen beyond the 8-year point, usually when the car is between 10 to 15 years old. But it's certainly not unheard of to hear about all kinds of expensive issues with turbo engines when they are relatively new. So I would say, given the choice between either a naturally aspirated engine and a turbo engine, you're always safer buying the naturally aspirated engine instead. Naturally aspirated engines have far fewer parts, they're much cheaper and easier to service, and because they don't have all the heat and pressure issues of a turbo engine, they can last a lot longer too. But if you're shopping for a particular car that only comes with the turbo engine and you have no other alternative, just make sure that you drive the car properly for longer distances in order to warm it up to operating temperature. You also need to make sure that you do all of the proper maintenance on time in order to maintain better long-term reliability. But if you're the type of person that's not very good with staying on top of maintenance, or if you do a lot of short distance driving or live somewhere with extremely cold weather, then it might be best just to avoid a turbo engine altogether. So after watching this video, would you still buy a car with a turbo engine, or would you just avoid one at all costs? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also check out some of my other car videos by checking out these links over here. Make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And if you need additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to check out carhelpcanada.com. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time.